Iran is one of the oldest civilizations on Earth, but also one of the most misunderstood countries in modern politics. It is the heir of ancient Persia, a nation shaped by empire, religion, revolution, sanctions, war, and resilience. From the ruins of Persepolis to the crowded streets of Tehran, from oil and gas wealth to inflation and sanctions, from universities and scientific ambition to one of the Middle East's most complex military systems, Iran stands at the center of global attention. Tonight, East African Mindset takes you deep into the facts, the story, and the strategic reality of Iran. Iran is not a small or marginal country, it is a vast state in West Asia, positioned between the Middle East, Central Asia, and the Caucasus. It borders the Caspian Sea to the north, and the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman to the south. Most importantly, it sits near the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most critical energy choke points. That location gives Iran enormous geopolitical leverage. Iran is also a country of mountains, deserts, cities, and trade routes. Tehran, the capital, is the political and economic center. Other major cities such as Mashhad, Isfahan, Shiraz, and Tabriz reflect Iran's long urban civilization. Its culture is rooted in Persian language and identity, but Iran is also home to Azeris, Kurds, Arabs, Baloch, Lurs, and other communities. This is why Iran must be understood not simply as a state, but as a civilization state. Its memory stretches back thousands of years, and that historical memory still shapes its politics today. To understand modern Iran, you have to begin with Persia. Ancient Persia produced one of the world's greatest empires, especially under the Achaemenids. Persepolis still stands as a symbol of imperial statecraft, architecture, ceremony, and political order. Over centuries, Persia changed through conquest, dynasty, religion, and modernization. Islam reshaped the region, but Persian civilization endured. In the modern era, the Pahlavi monarchy tried to centralize and modernize Iran, but many saw the Shah's rule as authoritarian, unequal, and tied to foreign powers. Then came the great turning point, the 1979 Islamic Revolution. That revolution overthrew the monarchy and created a new system that combined republican institutions with clerical oversight. The new state changed ideology, law, foreign policy, and the meaning of power in Iran. From that moment, Iran stopped being just another monarchy. It became a revolutionary republic with a new mission at home and abroad. Persepolis remains one of the clearest symbols of Iran's pre-Islamic imperial legacy. Many outsiders think Iran is simply a dictatorship or simply a democracy. In reality, it is neither in the ordinary sense. Iran is a hybrid system. Elections matter, but they exist inside a framework controlled by unelected institutions. At the top is the supreme leader, the most powerful figure in the state, with influence across the military, judiciary, media, and strategic policy. Then there is the president, who runs the executive branch and manages day-to-day government affairs. Iran also has a parliament, the modules, which passes laws. The Guardian Council reviews legislation and vets candidates for major elections. Political competition exists, but not as an open system where anyone can run freely. There's also the Supreme National Security Council, formally chaired by the president, but including senior officials and representatives of the supreme leader. This is why Iran's politics look confusing. There are elections and public debates, but ultimate authority remains concentrated at the top. As Britannica notes, the supreme leader oversees virtually all government functions, while the Guardian Council oversees elections. Reuters reports the Security Council is key to security and foreign policy. Iran is deeply shaped by Twelver Shia Islam, but identity is larger than religion, language, poetry, scholarship, and memory of empire. Iranian society is urban, educated, and politically aware. Its people are not a single bloc: conservatives, reformists, secular-minded citizens, religious traditionalists, business elites, students, workers, and a large diaspora. One defining tension: a highly literate, connected population governed by a system designed to preserve ideological control. That tension shapes protests, elections, reform, and the public mood. Iran's identity blends faith and nationhood with a long civilizational memory. Iran's economy is large, diversified, and resource-rich, but heavily constrained. It has major oil and gas reserves, industry, agriculture, and an educated workforce. World Bank data shows GDP about $475.25 billion in 2024, GDP per capita around $5,190, and growth of 3.7%, but decades of sanctions distort banking, trade, investment, shipping, energy exports, and currency stability. Inflation remains a major burden. The economy is forced to adapt, reroute, and improvise under pressure. Reuters reports new U.S. sanctions targeting oil sales, weapons-related networks, and shipping. IMF data shows very high inflation by regional standards, so the story is wealth under pressure, capacity under constraint. A country rich in resources, limited by politics, sanctions, and instability. Iran matters globally not only because of its politics but because of energy. Its location near Hormuz makes it impossible to ignore. When tensions rise, markets react, oil prices jump, routes become risky, insurance costs rise, and governments recalibrate. Shocks near Iran can reach Africa through fuel prices, fertilizer, transport, and inflation. Reuters and AP report recent conflict near Hormuz disrupted energy and raised inflation risks. The IMF warns sustained shocks can weaken growth. For East African economies, Iran can never be just a distant story. Iran invests in literacy, schooling, and higher education. Adult literacy is near 89%, and tertiary enrollment is high by regional standards, about 59%. This base supports science, engineering, medicine, and technical industries, even under sanctions. But brain drain and unemployment pressures remain real. Iran's long-term strength is not only oil, it is human capital. World Bank and UNESCO-linked data report literacy around 88.9% and tertiary enrollment about 59%. Iran's military is unusual because it is not built around just one army. First, the Artesh, the regular armed forces, ground, navy, air force, and air defense for territorial defense. Second, the IRGC, created after the revolution to defend the Islamic Republic itself. Over time, it developed ground, naval, and aerospace branches, plus the Quds Force for operations beyond Iran's borders. The Basij, a mass mobilization force, ties into this security architecture. This dual system gives redundancy, ideological control, and flexibility, but also overlap and complexity. In practice, the IRGC is also a political, strategic, and economic power center. The Iran Primer and other analyses describe the split between the Artesh and IRGC, with the Quds Force responsible for extraterritorial operations designed to preserve continuity through layered command. Iran's military power is real, but different from a superpower's global expeditionary model. Its strength comes from deterrence, missiles, drones, naval harassment capability, partners, geography, and endurance. Advantages include depth, domestic production, and a doctrine built around making any attack costly. Weaknesses include aging conventional equipment, sanctions pressure, and limits versus top-tier air and naval powers. Iran is strong enough to shape its region and disrupt markets, but it is not a global military superpower. CSIS and others describe Iran's doctrine as deterrence and asymmetric power, missiles, drones, IRGC networks, and layered defense. Iran's foreign policy blends revolutionary identity with security fears, seeing threats, sanctions, and rivals around it. It invests in alliances, armed partners, and influence networks. Supporters call it strategic depth, critics call it destabilizing interference. Either way, Iran is central to conflicts and power struggles across the region. Policy research documents the IRGC and Quds Force footprint as key to projection beyond Iran's borders. For East Africa, Iran matters through energy prices, Red Sea and Gulf shipping, global inflation, fertilizer costs, and wider Middle Eastern geopolitics. When conflict affects oil routes, families pay more at the pump, for transport, and for food. Understanding Iran helps East Africans see how history, identity, religion, state power, and foreign influence interact. Iran is a lesson in how a civilization can survive pressure, and how ideology and isolation can impose costs. Iran is a paradox, ancient yet revolutionary, educated yet restricted, resource-rich yet economically pressured, militarily formidable yet constrained, proud, resilient, and deeply strategic. To understand Iran is to understand a central fault line of our world, not just a country, but a system, not just a headline, but a civilization defining its future. Do you think Iran will become stronger or weaker in the next 10 years? Tell us in the comments. Subscribe to East African Mindset for deep global analysis that affects Africa. This is East African Mindset. See you next time.